It started with something simple, almost forgettable. I left my keys. That morning, I'd been running late for work, juggling a thermos of coffee, a half-eaten banana, and the vague memory that I was supposed to pick up dry cleaning that Madison had reminded me about twice. I was already halfway to the office, a good 15 minutes into Boise traffic, when I reached into my coat pocket and realized they weren't there. I remember this odd, sinking feeling in my gut, like some internal alarm went off. Not because I suspected anything, but because I hated turning around. I hated breaking routine. I called in to let the team know I'd be delayed, then circled back to the house. I didn't text Madison. I figured she'd already left for work. Her schedule had been all over the place lately anyway, and honestly, I wasn't keeping up the way I used to. I just figured I'd be in and out. When I walked in through the garage, the house was quiet. No music, no TV humming in the background, just the soft creak of the floor under my boots. I headed straight for the bedroom, our bedroom, and there they were. The keys, exactly where I thought they'd be, sitting on the nightstand under a notepad filled with Madison's loopy handwriting. But that's not what grabbed my attention. Her purse was on the bed, completely open. That might sound like nothing to someone else, but Madison wasn't the type to leave things scattered. She was tidy in a very specific way. The bed made a certain way. Her shoes aligned near the closet. Her bag, always zipped, always hung on the hook in the hallway. Seeing it open like that was off, like a glitch in the Matrix. Something had spilled out. A long, curled receipt, resting half on, half off the duvet. Out of reflex more than anything else, I picked it up, and then I just stood there, reading it once, then again. It was from a place called Le Cheval Blanc, a French restaurant in downtown Spokane. I knew the name even though I'd never been. The kind of place that had wait lists and wine pairings, where you didn't show up in jeans and ask for tap water. The date was stamped right across the top. 2 Saturdays ago. The same weekend Madison said she was driving down to Portland to visit her friend Clara, who had just had a baby. She'd sent me a picture. To her and Clara, holding coffee cups on some back porch, bundled in scarves, smiling. I remember thinking how tired she looked in that photo, but I hadn't said anything. I chalked it up to travel. But this receipt? It didn't match anything she told me. 2 entrees, a bottle of wine, a shared dessert, and a handwritten note at the bottom from the waiter. Hope you both enjoyed the anniversary touch. Come back soon. Anniversary touch? I stood there for a while, holding that slip of paper like it was radioactive. My brain scrambled for an explanation. A company dinner? A team event? But she said she was in Portland, not Spokane. And definitely not at a place like that. I walked to the kitchen, set the receipt on the counter like I didn't want it touching me anymore, and stared at it from a few feet back, hoping it would morph into something more innocent. Didn't. When Madison came home later that evening, everything felt normal. She walked in with a small grocery bag, dropped her keys in the bowl, and kissed me on the cheek. She smelled like peppermint gum and shampoo. I watched her put away a container of blueberries and start talking about a broken printer at her office. I just nodded. Hey, I said after she finished, trying to keep my voice level. Can I ask you something? She looked up from the fridge, brow furrowed. Of course. What's up? I walked over to the counter and slid the receipt toward her. I didn't say anything. I just watched her eyes as they scanned it. For the briefest moment, she froze. Just a flicker. Most people would have missed it. But I saw it. The way her hand twitched. The almost imperceptible catch in her breath. Then she smiled. Oh, that was just a business dinner. Completely boring. Client stuff. Company paid. I didn't move. In Spokane? I asked slowly. I thought you said you were in Portland that weekend. With Clara. She blinked, and the smile tightened. I was. I drove back through Spokane on Sunday for a lunch meeting. I didn't mention it because it wasn't really important. Lunch meeting? I pointed at the receipt. This says 7:46 p.m. There was a pause. Longer this time. Then came the sigh. Not the panicked kind. The practiced kind. Like she'd run this scenario in her head already. Okay, fine. It was dinner, not lunch. You're right. I got the timing mixed up. I had to reschedule with the client last minute, and they offered to meet for dinner instead. It wasn't a big deal, Logan. I swear. Honestly, I didn't even think twice about it. She looked straight at me, full eye contact, like she wanted me to see the sincerity. Like if she stared hard enough, I'd cave. And I'll admit, part of me wanted to believe her. Wanted to just chalk it up to bad memory, weird coincidence, a wrinkle in the schedule she didn't think was worth mentioning. But it didn't sit right. Not the explanation, not her tone. Her answers were too precise. Too airtight. Like she wasn't remembering what happened, she was remembering what to say. Like she'd rehearsed it. And the moment that thought crossed my mind, I felt the first crack form. Not in her story, but in me. Because up until that point, I'd never doubted Madison. Not really. We had our rough patches, every couple does, but I believed in her. In us. And now I was standing there, doubting whether a dinner receipt could unravel 5 years of marriage. She moved past me and started unpacking the rest of the groceries. You can call my boss if you want, she added casually. He was there too. I don't remember who picked up the bill, but it went through my card first. That's probably why you saw my name. I didn't respond. I just nodded again slowly. Okay, I said. And that was the end of it. On the surface. But the receipt went back in my wallet. Not because I believed her, but because something told me I might need it later. Once that seed of doubt took root, it didn't go away. At first, I tried to brush it off. One receipt wasn't proof of anything. Maybe she really did have a business dinner in Spokane. Maybe I was overthinking it. But doubt doesn't care about reason. It grows in the quiet spaces, in the gaps between your thoughts, in the hesitation before you trust someone's word. And once it's there, everything starts to look different. I began noticing things I hadn't before. Or maybe I had, but I trained myself not to see them. Her phone habits, for example. Madison had always been fairly private with her phone, but lately it never left her side. Even in the middle of dinner, if she got a message, she'd casually tilt the screen away or flip it face down. She used to leave it charging on the nightstand. Now it came to bed with her face down, always on silent. If I reached for it by mistake, she'd act like I'd stepped over some invisible line. At night, I'd wake up and find the bathroom light on, the door barely cracked. I'd hear her voice, low, hushed. Once, I got up quietly and stood just outside the door. Her voice dropped to a whisper before she flushed the toilet and pretended she'd just been sick. I had too much wine, she said, smiling tiredly. Go back to sleep. I did. But I didn't forget. Her schedule started shifting too. Madison had always been the more structured one between us, color-coded calendars, meal plans, bullet journals. But all of a sudden her routine unraveled. She started going to the city more often, claiming errands or client meetings or spontaneous brunches with friends I'd never heard of. Some days she'd text saying she was at a pop-up marketing event or helping with vendor logistics. It sounded legitimate. It always did. But it kept happening on Thursdays mostly. Like clockwork. She joined a gym too. That's what she said, at least. Some boutique place with no signage and weird hours. I offered to drive her one day just to be helpful. She said she was trying a new location and would Uber instead. Another time I asked how it was going, if she wanted new shoes or gear. She smiled and changed the subject. And then there was the distance. Not physical, not at first. Just this, drift. We used to talk about everything. Stupid shows we watched, people at work, which neighbors were selling their house. All the normal, quiet stuff that keeps a marriage breathing. But lately, it was like every conversation we had hovered on the surface. Like she didn't want to go deeper. And when I asked how she was feeling, if something was off, she'd shrug it off. Just tired, she'd say. It's been a long quarter. Or, I'm just in a weird mood. Nothing to worry about. But it was something. I knew it was. Our Macy changed too. Not just in the bedroom, although that became a minefield of excuses and polite rejections, but in the way she touched me. Her hugs were shorter. Her kisses were light, like they were more out of habit than want. And the little things, the hand on my back as she passed behind me, the playful nudges, the shared looks across a room, those faded. Replaced by absent-minded nods and ahas while she scrolled through her phone. I caught myself trying harder. Making dinner more often, cleaning the kitchen before she got home, texting her silly memes like I used to. She responded, but not like before. Her replies came hours later, or not at all. Sometimes I'd get a thumbs-up emoji when I sent her something thoughtful. That tiny little thumb felt like a punch in the gut. I started paying closer attention. I noticed she'd changed her laptop password, something she hadn't done in years. I tried logging in one night just to check our flight confirmation for a trip we were planning in April, and it was locked. I asked her casually and she said it was a company-mandated change for security. That made sense, she worked in marketing tech, but something about her tone told me it wasn't the whole story. One evening, she came home later than usual. Said she had stayed for a team-building mixer. She smelled different, not bad, just unfamiliar. Like a new perfume. When I asked about it, she laughed. Oh, that? One of the women at the office brought samples from her side hustle. I tried one. Do you like it? I told her it was nice. I lied. It smelled like disconnection. The breaking point came a few weeks later. We were sitting on the couch watching a documentary and her phone lit up. She didn't notice. I saw the name. It wasn't a full name, just an initial. A single letter like R. The message preview was cut off, but it read, "Can't stop thinking about." She grabbed the phone quickly, locked the screen, and set it in her lap. I said nothing. She didn't either. After that night, I started taking mental notes. Not because I wanted to be suspicious, but because I already was. Every little behavior, every unexplained schedule change, every quiet moment that didn't sit right, I wrote it down in a little notebook I kept hidden in the garage. The notebook made me feel pathetic at first. Like I was creeping on my own marriage. But it also gave me something solid to look at when I started questioning myself. I'd flip through pages and remember I wasn't making this up. There was a pattern, a rhythm to the deception, and it was growing more obvious. There was one entry that still hits me harder than the rest. It was a Wednesday evening. I'd had a terrible day at work, client blew up over a missed deadline, my manager chewed me out, and I spilled coffee on my only decent shirt. When I got home, I wanted comfort. A hug. A small sign that someone was in my corner. Madison was sitting at the kitchen counter, typing furiously on her laptop. I said, "Rough day," and dropped my bag by the door. She didn't look up. She said, "Want some wine?" I walked over, stood behind her, placed my hands on her shoulders. I could really use a hug. She tensed for half a second, just enough for me to notice, then leaned back and let me wrap my arms around her. But she didn't turn around. Didn't lift her hands from the keys. Didn't rest her head on my shoulder like she used to. It felt like hugging a mannequin. That was the moment I realized how far we drifted. A few nights later, I caught her laughing on a call in the garage. I was coming in from the backyard and the sound stopped as soon as she saw me. She pretended she was checking the recycling. Said the call was work-related. But her smile lingered for a second too long. And her eyes, they looked like someone else's. Still, I said nothing. I kept waiting for her to come clean. For her to sit me down and tell me she was overwhelmed or confused or whatever version of the truth she felt safe enough to offer. But she never did. She just kept moving like nothing was wrong. Maybe that's what hurt the most, not the distance, not even the lies, but how easily she could live inside them. Some nights, I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, wondering when our marriage had become something she could slip in and out of like a coat. Wondering what version of me she kept in her mind, some clueless, fragile man who couldn't handle the truth. Or worse, someone she no longer thought about at all. I wasn't ready to accuse her yet. I didn't want to catch her in a lie. I just wanted her to choose honesty. To reach for me. But every time she had the chance, she looked the other way. And that's when I knew this wasn't just a rough patch. This was something else entirely. The truth came on a Tuesday. I remember the date exactly, March 14th. Not because of any calendar significance, but because it was just ordinary enough to disguise what was about to happen. That morning started like most others, gray skies, lukewarm coffee, and the same quiet routine we'd both been pretending was normal. Madison was unusually chipper. She wore a Berg *NY blazer I hadn't seen before and took her time getting ready. She even played music in the kitchen, some upbeat acoustic playlist she usually reserved for road trips. As she poured her coffee into a thermos, she mentioned a corporate seminar she had to attend that evening. It was out near Eagle, she said, something about strategy alignment and team onboarding. Won't be home for dinner, she added, slipping her laptop into her tote bag. Don't wait up. She kissed me on the cheek, light and practiced. Love you, she said. I nodded. Good luck. The second the door closed behind her, I stood there in the silence of the kitchen, my jaw tight. I didn't know why that morning was different, only that it was. Her cheeriness felt artificial. Too bright. Too smooth. A few hours later, I got a call from our accountant. Some paperwork needed my signature, and I remembered Madison had a file she was supposed to email days ago. I figured I'd swing by her office, it wasn't far, and grab it myself. I even rehearsed a reason in case she saw me just in the neighborhood. Innocent enough. But when I got there, the parking lot was nearly empty. Her office lights were off. The receptionist, a college-aged guy named Caleb, looked up as I walked in. Hey, Logan, he said with a small smile. You just missed the team. They left around lunch. Training got canceled. I froze. Canceled? I repeated. Yeah. Some scheduling mix-up. Everyone went home early. He shrugged. Madison said she might swing by later, but I think she took the rest of the day. I forced a smile, thanked him, and walked out. By the time I got into my truck, my stomach was in knots. I sat there with the engine off, phone in my lap, mind racing. I knew, deep down I knew. But something inside me still reached for any explanation that didn't end in betrayal. Maybe she got pulled into a last-minute meeting somewhere else. Maybe she misunderstood the schedule. Maybe. My phone buzzed. A text from Madison. Heading into the seminar now. Don't wait up. Might run late. I stared at the screen. The lie came wrapped in ordinary words. Nothing about it stood out except I knew it wasn't true. For 30 minutes I sat in that truck, engine idling, unsure of what to do. Then, without even deciding, I found myself driving. Not home. Not to her office. Just driving. My hands moved on the wheel like they knew something my heart couldn't yet admit. I ended up on the outskirts of town. A stretch of road I hadn't been down in months. As I passed an old used bookstore and a shuttered gas station, I saw the glow of a small, cozy restaurant up ahead. One of those tucked-away places locals know but never advertise. Dim lighting. Old brick walls. String lights in the window. I don't know why I slowed down. Maybe it was the music drifting faintly through the cracked window. Maybe it was the sight of the hostess smiling as she welcomed someone inside. But as I drove past, my eyes flicked to the large front window, and that's when I saw her. Madison. She was seated at a corner table, half-shadowed by the dim lighting, and she wasn't alone. There was a man sitting beside her, not across beside. Their chairs nearly touching. His hand rested over hers, and she wasn't pulling away. She was leaning in, smiling, not the stiff, distant smile I'd seen at home lately, but a soft, open expression I hadn't seen in months. A look that used to be mine. I pulled over down the block, my pulse pounding in my ears. For a few minutes, I couldn't move. I just stared at the dashboard, willing the image away. But it stayed burned into my brain. Her eyes shining, her hand in his, their bodies close like a secret they'd stopped trying to hide. Eventually, I stepped out of the truck. I walked slowly back toward the restaurant, staying close to the wall, half hoping I was wrong. That it wasn't her. That I had seen someone else. But as I got closer, there was no doubt. It was Madison. Her hair tucked behind her ear just the way she did when she was nervous. Her hands gesturing softly. Her laugh, God, I hadn't heard her laugh like that in months. And then, just as I reached the corner of the building, the man leaned in and kissed her. Not a quick peck. Not a friendly brush of lips. A slow, deliberate kiss. The kind you give someone you miss. The kind that means something. She kissed him back. I didn't go inside. I didn't shout or make a scene or bang on the window. I stood there long enough to be sure, then turned around and walked back to my truck. I sat behind the wheel, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me from falling apart. My chest felt hollow. Not like it had been punctured, but scooped out, carved clean, as if every part of me that trusted her had been removed in one slow motion. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even move for a while. Just sat there, my breath fogging the windshield, replaying that kiss over and over. There had been other signs. I knew that now. I'd been cataloging them for weeks. But this wasn't a theory anymore. This wasn't a gut feeling or a suspicious pattern. This was the truth, delivered in the most casual, devastating way possible. She was with someone else. She had been lying to me. And I just watched it unfold like a scene from a movie I didn't want to be in. On the drive home, everything blurred. Streetlights stretched into long streaks. The radio played something soft, something I didn't recognize. The roads were half empty, the city quiet. I felt like I was moving through a dream, one of those slow-motion nightmares where you can't scream loud enough or run fast enough. When I got home, I sat in the driveway for another hour. The house was dark. Madison wouldn't be back for a while. She was probably still laughing in that booth, pretending she had nothing to hide. Eventually, I walked inside, took off my coat, and sat on the edge of the bed. Her side of the mattress was perfectly made, pillows fluffed. I stared at it like it belonged to a stranger. I didn't touch my phone. I didn't text her. I didn't call anyone. I just sat there, letting the weight of it settle. The truth didn't scream. It didn't crash down in a moment of drama. It whispered, in a single glance through a restaurant window. And once it spoke, it didn't stop. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on my back in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the refrigerator through the walls. The house felt unfamiliar, like a stranger's place I was renting by accident. Her scent still lingered faintly on the pillow beside me like the ghost of a woman I used to know. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't break anything. Instead, I started making a list. Not a mental list, a real one. Pen and paper. One by one, I wrote down everything that had our names on it. Accounts, bills, logins, services, travel plans, subscriptions, car payments, streaming apps, cell plans. Then I circled the ones with my name listed first and underlined the ones that I had full control over. I wasn't going to confront her, not yet. I wasn't interested in watching her contort the truth or offer some watered-down version of reality. I didn't want the performance. I didn't need the lies. I just needed space and control. The first thing I did was log into our online banking system. We'd always kept a joint account for household bills, groceries, trips. But we also had a secondary savings account we both contributed to, one we called the Utah Fund. We'd planned a spring getaway to Zion, maybe rent a cabin, disconnect from the world. I withdrew half my half down to the dollar. I opened a new savings account in my name only, deposited it, and closed the tab. I didn't touch her share. That wasn't what this was about. Then I opened our travel app and canceled the Zion reservation. It was still refundable. We'd booked early, so it hadn't been charged to a credit card yet. That cancellation notice would hit her inbox by morning. Next was the credit card. We had a shared rewards card for flights and hotel points. I didn't cancel it, I just removed my name from it entirely. Transferred the points to a personal card, called the bank, and had a new one expedited to me. Hers would still work for now, but the statement would look very different next month. I logged into our utilities portal. The gas bill was in her name. The water and internet were under mine. I removed the autopay feature and switched to paper statements. That alone would slow her down. Our Spotify family plan? Cancelled. My name was the primary. Same for Netflix. Her playlists would disappear. Her profiles would go blank. It was petty. I knew that. But in that moment, I needed some proof that I still had a say in what happened next. Then I opened a photo folder on my laptop. Hundreds of images, vacations, birthdays, blurry selfies, the night we moved in. I scrolled until I found the wedding folder. The thumbnails stared back at me like artifacts from another life. I didn't delete them. Not yet. But I moved them. Dragged them all into an external hard drive and placed it in my desk drawer under a stack of old receipts. The house felt colder once they were gone. The final step was the bedroom. Our walls were lined with frames, our first dance, a candid on the beach, a black and white print of us laughing on the floor of our old apartment. One by one, I took them down. Replaced them with blank canvases I found in the garage. For some reason, I couldn't stand the thought of walking past our smiles every day while knowing what they'd been reduced to. I removed my wedding band. Not dramatically, just slipped it off and placed it in the top drawer of my nightstand beside an old pair of earbuds. My finger felt exposed. Lighter. Then I wrote a short letter. Just a few lines. No emotion. No accusations. Just a note that said, "We'll talk when I'm ready." Not before. I folded it once and left it on the kitchen counter beside her keys. I didn't know when she'd come home. I didn't care. That night, I slept in the guest room. It was colder in there, quieter. But I needed the space. I needed a room that hadn't been infected with the weight of her lies. When I woke up the next morning, her car was in the driveway. She was home. I moved slowly through the house. Her purse was on the table, her shoes by the door. But no sign of her. I figured she was still asleep. The bedroom door was closed. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen counter, staring at the steam. I didn't hear her stir. I didn't hear anything at all. She came downstairs a little after 10. Hair still tousled from sleep, wearing the old sweatshirt I gave her 2 Christmases ago. She paused when she saw me sitting there, like something was already off, but she couldn't name it yet. "Hey," she said cautiously. "Morning," I replied. Her eyes shifted to the counter where my note still sat unopened. Then to the blank wall where our wedding photo used to hang. She didn't ask. She didn't say anything. Instead, she walked to the fridge, poured herself juice, and leaned against the sink. "You're up early," she said finally. I nodded. "Got some things done." She offered a smile, tight, unsure. "I was gonna make pancakes." I didn't respond. She looked around the room, probably sensing that something was missing. She didn't ask about the Spotify account or the empty photo frames or why her Hulu login had suddenly vanished from the smart TV. Maybe she knew. Or maybe she was too scared to find out. She stepped closer. "Everything okay?" I looked her in the eye and said, "We'll talk when I'm ready." Then I stood, took my coffee, and walked out onto the back porch, letting the screen door creak shut behind me. She didn't follow. Over the next few days, I stayed quiet. Not cold, just quiet. I did the dishes. I took out the trash. I paid my half of the groceries. But I didn't engage. I didn't ask where she was going. I didn't wait up. I didn't check her texts or beg for explanations. She started to notice. By Thursday, she asked if I wanted to have dinner. I said I wasn't hungry. Friday, she asked if I'd seen her gym pass. I hadn't. Saturday, she tried to initiate something in bed. I told her I needed rest. My silence wasn't a punishment. It was a boundary, one that I wasn't going to break for her convenience. She cried once late at night in the bathroom. I heard her through the wall. She tried to muffle it, but the sound carried. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, feeling absolutely nothing. And it scared me how easy that had become. I didn't want revenge. I wanted clarity. And every quiet action, every small shift in routine, every service disconnected or login removed, each one made the truth louder than any argument ever could. She had made her choices. Now she was learning what it felt like to live with them. She came home Sunday afternoon with 2 grocery bags and a new tone in her voice. It was softer, almost rehearsed. She walked through the door like someone trying not to wake a sleeping animal. Her eyes swept the room quickly, registering every minor change she hadn't noticed before: the bare walls, the missing photo albums, the open guest room door. I was at the kitchen table, balancing a checkbook, something I hadn't done by hand in years. But writing the numbers down felt grounding. It reminded me that I still had control over something. "Hey," she said, setting the bags down carefully like the sound might set something off. "I got your almond milk. And the protein bars you like." I didn't respond immediately. Just nodded. She hovered for a moment. "Do you want help with that?" "No," I said, eyes on the page. "I've got it." She leaned against the counter, chewing on her bottom lip. I could feel her watching me, waiting for a crack, some opening in the silence. I didn't give her one. A few minutes later, she tried again. "So, what's going on, Logan? You've been acting strange all week." I looked up at her. Calm. Even. Strange? She blinked. "You've barely spoken to me. You canceled the Utah trip. You took down our pictures. I woke up 2 nights ago and your ring was gone." I placed the pen down and met her eyes. "I left you a note." "Yeah," she said quickly, like the words tasted bitter. "That? We'll talk when you're ready." "Is that supposed to explain all this?" "No," I said, standing up slowly. "It's not an explanation. It's a boundary." Her voice rose slightly, desperation bleeding through. "Okay, then talk to me. I'm here, Logan. Whatever this is, whatever I did, we can work through it. But I need you to tell me what's going on." I walked past her and opened the fridge. "We're not working through anything." That stopped her. "What's that supposed to mean?" I shut the door gently and turned to her. "It means you lied. About Spokane. About the seminar. About everything, really." Her breath caught, and I watched her face shift through half a dozen expressions: confusion, shock, guilt, and something dangerously close to fear. "Logan," she started, her voice low, "I don't know what you think you saw." "I saw you," I interrupted. "At a restaurant on the edge of town. With him." She swallowed hard. "You followed me?" "I wasn't trying to," I said. "I went to your office. Caleb told me the seminar was canceled. I drove around. I saw you by accident." She didn't speak. Her hand rested on the counter behind her like she needed it to stay upright. "I saw you kiss him," I added. "I saw everything." The silence between us swelled until it filled the whole house. Then, softly, she said, "It's not what you think." I laughed. Quietly, bitterly. "You kissed another man, Madison. What else is there to think?" She stepped forward. "It wasn't serious. It was a mistake." "A mistake," I repeated. "Like tripping down the stairs? Like ordering the wrong meal? You didn't fall into that kiss." "I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered. I shook my head. "But it did. And that matters more than the intention." Tears welled in her eyes. "I messed up. I know I did. But please don't throw this away. 5 years, Logan. We've built a life. And you burned a hole in the middle of it," I said. "Do you honestly think I can unsee that? That I can trust you again? Every time you leave the house now, I'll wonder where you are. Who you're with. What you're hiding. Is that the life you want for either of us?" "I didn't mean to hurt you," she choked. "But you did." We stood there for what felt like a century, facing each other like strangers in the home we used to share. Then I walked to the hallway and opened the drawer beneath the console table, pulled out a manila envelope, handed it to her. She hesitated before taking it. "What is this?" she asked. "Information," I replied. "Bank accounts, passwords, the lease breakdown, everything you'll need to move forward." Her hand trembled. "You're kicking me out?" I'm asking you to leave, I said. This house has felt like a stage set for weeks. I don't want to keep pretending. She looked around, as if expecting everything to suddenly make sense. Just like that. There's no just about it, I said. I didn't make this choice overnight. I've been living with your distance for months. Her voice cracked. You're not even going to fight for this? I did, I said, quietly, while you were lying, while you were kissing someone else. She opened the envelope and stared down at the documents inside. Where am I supposed to go? I don't know, I said, but it can't be here. I'll stay in the guest room, she offered, just until I figure it out. No, I said, that room's mine now. You need to pack a bag. A few days, that's all I'm asking. You can come back for the rest later. She nodded slowly, like her body was moving ahead of her thoughts. Upstairs, I heard her suitcase wheels creaking across the hardwood. Drawers opening, zippers tugged, the occasional muffled sob. I stayed on the couch, staring at the blank wall where our wedding photo used to hang. 30 minutes later, she came down the stairs with her bag. Her hair was pulled back. Her eyes were swollen. She paused at the door, looking at me like she wanted to say something final, something meaningful. But I didn't look up, so she left. No door slam, no final plea, just the click of the lock and silence. That night, I walked through the house like it was someone else's memory. The couch felt too big, the kitchen too sterile, the bedroom door too heavy. But there was peace in it. Peace in the absence of pretending. Peace in the stillness. By morning, I changed the locks, took her name off the mailbox, removed her line from the cell plan. I made coffee for one and drank it on the porch while the sun climbed over the trees. People say grief is loud, but it's not. It's quiet, like a blanket laid over a table where two people used to eat. And it was in that quiet that I finally felt something I hadn't in months. Certainty point 2 months later, she came back. No warning. Just her silhouette in the doorway, holding a box of things she'd left behind. She asked if we could talk. I let her in. She walked through the house like it belonged to someone else, her fingers brushing bare walls. I miss this, she said, tears in her voice. I didn't respond. I pointed to the box she came for. She lingered, tried to laugh about old memories, said she was different now. But the rooms had changed. The air was different. She waited for a crack in my silence. There wasn't one. She left without asking to stay. 6 months passed. I got a dog. I ran every morning. I learned to cook for one. The house, once haunted, now felt like mine again. Her name stopped echoing. Letters came sometimes, apologies I never opened. I kept them in a drawer, unread. I didn't need her explanations. The truth had already spoken, and it was enough. I didn't hate her anymore. I didn't love her either. I just moved on, quietly, completely, and for the first time in a long time, the silence in my life felt earned. Not empty, but free.